What's up, everyone? It is your Resin 3D printing god, AkumaMods, back again with our review of the Apex Maker X1, an insanely fast resin printer that's new on the market on Kickstarter. Let's check it out. So, for some of you guys that are looking into getting a new resin printer, there are quite a lot of new resin printers on the market actually, and this is one of them. This is the Apex Maker X1, and it is boasting some insanely fast speeds, 180 millimeters per hour. That basically means you can print an entire build volume at 400 millimeters in no time. And in fact, I've actually been playing around with this printer quite a lot. And one of the major things that is a downfall of speed on resin printers is the fact that they print at a 0.100 layer height, which means basically you're printing at FDM quality with a resin printer. Now you're still going to get way better quality on the resin printer than you would a actual FDM printer, at least untuned, I should say. But I basically wanted to try and mess with the settings on this thing and get it down to the same quality that any other resin printer that I have in my arsenal comes stock at 0.050 layer height, so about half a layer. Basically, I wanted to try and get that along with the speed settings all set up and ready to go for you guys to enjoy. And I'm happy to say that I've been testing that with this printer nonstop with no problems. And in fact, so much so, you may think, oh, well, you got to use speed resin. As long as you dial in the resin exposure times, you can print any resin. Yes, I said that. Any resin that you put inside of this printer, as long as you dial in the exposure times, my speed settings will guarantee still the same speed that you would on the stock settings, but at half the layer. So that means you get the resin quality that you normally would with any resin printer on the market, as well as insanely fast speed. Now, obviously, when you lower the layer height down a little bit more, that's obviously going to make it a little bit slower than what the speeds that they're boasting at 180 millimeters an hour. However, I'd probably say it's around more like 250, or I'm sorry, not 250. It's probably 180 millimeters per 2 hours, I'd say. If not, maybe a little bit more. I haven't really dialed in the time frames for it, but it's somewhere around there. So it still maintains insanely fast speed. And just to tell you, the fastest printer that I have in my arsenal right now is my Frozen Sonic Mega. Lots of you guys have known that. Uncle Jesse has used my profile for his printing, and everybody seems to love it. So I thank you guys for that. But again, I wanted to do the same thing for this printer and make sure that we have quality and speed over anything. So that way you guys can enjoy this printer the way that I personally think that it was intended to. So just to give you an example, my Frozen Sonic Mega with my speed settings at the fastest possibility can print a full build volume at 400 millimeters tall in about 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours. That's very, very quick for a resin printer. Now, with this printer, on the same settings, but obviously much faster speed abilities, this thing can probably do it in half that time, if not just a little bit less. Again, I haven't fully dialed in the time frames for it, but it was roughly around 12 hours. It might be a little bit less than that, but close enough. So still, half the speed of what my Mega can do. And my Mega is probably the best printer that I have in my arsenal for its size and the speed that I can print it at. Now this one is going to be probably my new favorite, in my opinion. Now, I know it's a Kickstarter project, and I can't really tell you to back a Kickstarter ever, no matter what I do. because it just the moralities behind it. I'm not a big fan. That's my personal thing. If you guys are okay with Kickstarter, that's perfectly fine. But I can at least tell you, if you're looking for a good resin printer, this would probably be something to look into because it really is a nice printer for the price that you pay for it. And that brings me to my other point. So, just to give you an idea of price point to what you get for this printer. Currently, I'm comparing this basically apples to oranges with the Frozen Sonic Mega because they are slightly different, but in size-wise, they're not too far off. The Frozen Sonic Mega is roughly around $3,000 shipped to your door. Now, that depends on where you're getting it from, but it's somewhere in that bulk range, between $2,500 and $3,000. Now, to get two of these, two from the Kickstarter, is $2,300. And from what I was told, the shipping prices are, I think, maximum $400. So, and I think that's per machine. So, you know, you add on another 800. Okay, you're a little bit over the Mega. You have two of these machines, which are twice as fast. And if you use the stock settings, they're even faster than that. At the stock settings, going back to that, the stock settings, you can print a full build volume in about 4 hours and 12 minutes, I think it was, which that's what I printed a little mini-me at. So it is insanely fast if you are okay, if I could talk, with stock speed settings. But obviously I want to try and get the quality and the speed all together. And again, that's on any type of resin that you want to. You just have to dial in the exposure times a little bit. It is kind of tricky with this because it is so fast. So I do suggest using something a little bit different than the XP validation matrix that are out there that are very flat. Use something that is more raised up because this is so fast that it squishes those too much. So that brings me to one of the, I guess, kind of issues with this printer. Because it's so fast that it has a squish effect on it. Because there's so much speed and force coming down and up when it's raising that it does have that impact feature on it. So if you are printing something on here, I don't really suggest printing anything flat on the build plate. I personally don't really do that anyway. I've kind of moved away from that years ago. It was just something that I was always afraid of, supporting models and making sure that they fit and there's not anything that is bending or bowing or anything like that. So I've kind of come out of my comfort shell with that. So I pretty much support everything that I print on here personally. So in my opinion, is this printer really worth it? I personally think so. For the price that you're going to pay for this printer, it is got a lot of features packed in it. So let me just kind of turn this on and show you guys exactly how nice this printer actually is. It's got a very, very nice startup screen and touch UI. And from what I've heard, I believe it's the mag forms that this is borrowed from. Now, obviously, you know, people copy designs and things like that and utilize the same type of UI. It's not the end of the world. It's not like you're stealing a design. There's usually one manufacturer that sells it, and then they branch it out to everybody else, and everybody else copies it. That's how it goes with anything electronics, in my opinion, in the Chinese industry. So, but like I said, there's really, really nice touch UI. This has got a lot of features on this printer, and everything is very responsive on this touchscreen. Obviously, it's not responsive for me because I'm kind of doing this on the side here. If I was touching the right back button. But it's got a lot of nice features. One of the features that I absolutely love, and I wish is on all resin printers moving forward, is the fact that I can move the Z-axis up and down to whatever I want. There's actually a slider bar where I can just manually move it up and down as fast and as you know, far and as high as I want to at any point in time. Or I can just set it to say, hey, I want to move this 200 millimeters down, and it'll move it 200 millimeters. So either way, it's got it. You're not stuck with the 0.1 millimeter, the 1 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter. And sometimes, very rarely, is the 100 millimeter feature, which I don't really see on any consumer grade printer. So this is a nice feature to have, in my opinion, because I like to have models that drip. One of the things that I personally like doing is having a drip mount for my resin printers, so that way I can try and drip off as much resin, excess resin, that I possibly can with the printer itself. This one is actually designed by, I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm sorry, Artelier 3D. I believe he is a French YouTube content creator, whatever you want to call it. And he designed this, and this works perfectly fine with this resin printer. It is a really, really nice feature. I just printed that in PLA on my Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon on the strength settings, so that way making sure that this ginormous build plate does not have any issues with it. So, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot of features with it. I've been utilizing the wireless feature. Now, with this printer, it is vastly different than other printers. There is not a built-in Wi-Fi setting or setup on this, I should say. Excuse me. This basically has a Wi-Fi dongle that you purchase. Now, I don't know if it's available to purchase from the company, but you can readily get this off of Amazon or anywhere. It's a TP-Link. I think it's a T100 wireless router, essentially. It's a little wireless dongle. And you put it in there, and when you set up Shitubox, you can send it directly to the printer and get your print starting to going. So that is really, really nice. Now, there is a slight bug with it. Sometimes it doesn't register if you're doing multiple prints on it. So if I set a print and I take it off, and then I go to print another one off of Shitubox, sometimes it kind of clashes and it doesn't have an issue. I will be working with the company to try and rectify that issue. Some of you guys have seen me have an issue with this, with the Z resetting. So essentially, the difference with this printer compared to all the other ones is Z home is actually up top here. It's not down. So one of the issues that I faced earlier on with this printer is that somehow, me messing with settings, I'm guessing, I ended up resetting the Z0 to the top here. Well, the problem is Z0 is actually here, but it still registers up here. So the problem was I couldn't move it up or down. I couldn't manually do it. I tried every trick in the book to try and reset it, and I couldn't do it. Apparently, it was a bug in the software. They did rectify the issue. If people do have that issue, I do have the bug. I will put it up on the Facebook group if you guys need to. But as far as I know, everything should be fine with the machines rolling out to the consumers moving forward. Again, it was an issue that they knew was there, but didn't think that anybody was going to have an issue. And ding ding, me being Mr. I want to play with things, yeah, that's exactly what happened. So it is what it is. So let's get to the prints. Now, I've done a handful of prints. I've had a handful of failures. And I wanted to show this one off specifically because this is a print that was designed by Finn's Forge. And it was an idea that was brought to the table, me being the resin 3D printing god. Someone decided to put up the 10 commandments of resin printing. And his name is Marvel 3D UK. And he was kind enough to give me a shirt with those commandments on it, and we turned it into the tablets of 10 commandments. Now, I don't know if there's an issue with the file or anything, but I keep having issues trying to print this. So it's kind of like an oxymoron. Like, it's a print that should be printed in resin, but it's not allowing me to print it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me having printing block. I don't really know, but I wanted to just basically show this off to you guys to let you know that, not everybody has successful prints all the time. I, myself, knowing what I know, have failures all the time. And this is one of them. I'm not going to pull it off because I don't have gloves on or anything. But essentially, you can see this print right here kind of has a gap in it. And behind it, actually, all of the supports are actually kind of destroyed and twisted, which was probably why that is all messed up like that. But then I ended up checking out the vat, and it turns out that there's a puncture in the vat. So that's probably why it failed. This time, it's not a file issue. I thought it was for quite some time because, like I said, this is probably about the sixth time, no joke, of me trying to print it. Now, all fairness, the last 5 times that I was trying to print this, I was trying to print it full scale at 400 millimeters. So it was quite insane. A lot of resin was destroyed, used up, whatever you want to call it, in its try to be glory of a print. But unfortunately, failures happen. And it's probably, again, mostly my fault because I was just trying to print stuff really quick, and I was using a mixture of resin, which had about, no joke, 16 different resins on it. But anyway, I'm babbling on here. Let's try and get to the prints to show you guys off what I'm talking about, and then we'll get more into the pricing of the machine and all the information about the actual machine. So we have a couple big prints here that I have printed off that basically they are my pride and joys of this printer and what it can do. This is one, it is a custom commission, it is completely hollowed out, and it is a trophy that was designed and made for someone specifically a little bit further away from me. He's a little bit southern in the state, and he had this design, so I printed this up for him, and it's been quite an interesting journey with this print because it keeps showing up at his house, broken into a million pieces. No thanks to the shipping companies. I say companies because it's been multiple. And I packed this every way that I possibly could, even suspending it literally in midair inside of a box, inside of another box. And it still gets broken. So I think we're going to try and hand deliver this to him sometime next week and get this situated. But anyway, that one's really, really cool. One of my favorites. Obviously, this is actually a print that's been in my collection for about, I'd say, a year and a half now, maybe a little bit less, maybe about a year. This is by Doses 3D, and it is obviously Akuma, because, you know, this is AkumaMods channel. And I based everything that pretty much came off of Akuma from Street Fighter. So if you guys like Akuma from Street Fighter, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, man. I absolutely love it as well. Excuse me. But yeah, I basically wanted to print this off, and this was printed in multiple parts on this printer, and this was printed at the 0.05 layer height, so it's got all the nice details on it. That's one of the things that a lot of people were concerned about, is losing the detail at the 0.1 layer height, and that's why I basically wanted to try and work on this, because I didn't want to have anybody discouraged from a brand new printer and basically having you have a crutch on it where you can't print at a lower resolution, or higher resolution actually, and you know, not have the ability to print fast as well. So that's why I worked on that speed profile, which I will have available sometime soon, linked down in the description, as well as all the models that I'll be showing off here. And again, that was one of the pride and joys of this printer. This is probably the best print that I got off of this printer. And it's just more or less a culmination of the higher resolution, just the print details, and the speed that we got from this printer. I think in total, this printer at its highest was about 212 millimeters tall. And I think it took around 6 hours or so. I don't exactly have it dialed in, but it was somewhere around there that that we had that printed. So that's insanely fast for 212 millimeters. Imagine that. So another one is something that I've been slowly painting here and there. I got to get some skin tone flesh, but it's literally a mini-me. Now, in all fairness, this is not the greatest scan. This was done at Rapid TCT by our friends over at RevoPoint, which we will be showing off some more products from them. Fantastic 3D scanners, in my opinion. If you're looking for a 3D scanner, for the price, they cannot be beat. In my opinion, even $1,000 scanners that you can find are, you know, no match for this, especially with the new software update. that they have on this on the scanners. But anyway, this was scanned by one person, and it was at Rapid TCT's at Revel Point booth, and it was, I think, about 20 minutes it took us to scan me, get an STL file. I did have somebody lightly clean it up. It's not like anything major. Again, this was made by the Revel Point range scanner. It's made for large objects. It's not made to get any super details or anything. So, like, if I had a crinkle in my shirt, it might get it, but it might not get the underside. It was a very basic scan. Nothing major or anything like that. We could have probably got a far superior scan if I had a little bit more time to get scanned with a different scanner that they have in their range. But anyway, so I decided to size this down a little bit and make it into a doll, and that's basically the little miniature version that you see here. Excuse me. And we printed this on the Apex Maker, and this was printed at the 0.50 layer height. And I think this print specifically took about, I think it was around 12 hours. Technically, it's 420 millimeters, but that's because we had them printed like this on an angle. So we got a little bit more Z height on it because of that. So we were able to utilize the entire build plate. Now, there is one print that I did forget to grab, and I'll have him over here. Now, this was printed with the Apex resin on its stock settings, and this is actually a file that they have on their printer ready for you to test print. At least for me it was. So this is obviously Thanos from the Marvel Universe. And even though it's printed at the stock settings at the 0.1 layer height, this is still a very impressive and highly detailed model. Again, even though you're printing at what I consider FDM layer height, you still get the resin details of the little nooks and crannies here that otherwise probably wouldn't print very well on an FDM printer or would need major supports, whereas this didn't really need all that much supports. Most of the supports were on the backside, and everything was situated very, very easily. Now, this was printed hollow, the same with my little miniature version of me. And again, he was only printed in 4 hours and 12 minutes. Insanity. Now, moving along with the speed, these are miniatures from Loot Studio. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have a good camera setup to get a close-up view. Maybe we'll do some close-up shots and add it into the video at some point. But these are miniatures from Loot Studio. These were printed with the stock settings because I really wanted to see what I would start with and what I would end up with. Now, next on the block, we will end up printing the 0.5 layer height miniatures and compare the two. But there's already some variations there because this was printed with one type of resin and these will be printed with another type of resin. So we already have some slight variations. There's a lot of things that go together in terms of details when it comes to resin printing. Resins, exposure time, speed, all factors in there. And even sometimes, because we are starting to get into the colder seasons, that sometimes that plays into effect where the resin kind of gets a little bit gelatinous and whatnot. So you do have to worry about the heating elements of that. Now, talking about that, going into the machine, there is a heated vat. Instead of a heated chamber on this printer, there's a heated vat, which in my opinion, I think is a better choice over the heated chamber. And I'm not saying that the heated chamber is not a good idea. I think they're both good ideas. They both have their places. However, the heated vat makes it a little bit better because it's actually the liquid that you are heating, the resin itself that you are heating on this printer. And that is one thing that I think is a step above an ambient heater, where it just kind of heats the top of it. It doesn't actually heat the liquid that's all around it. So now I will let you know that if you guys are going to play around with the heat settings on this, make sure that you guys are taking a look, because on stock, it's set to 40 degrees Celsius, which, if you guys don't know any conversions, that is insanely hot for resin. I really don't think that any normal resin should go over about 23 degrees Celsius, maybe even 22. Really, anything above that, you're printing very, very specialty resins, very high end resins that do require heating involved in its process. And those are very, very expensive resins. So, if you're using anything that you basically buy off Amazon, that heated vat should not ever really go above 23. 25 at the absolute maximum. But in my opinion, 23 degrees Celsius is a good choice. And that'll put you right in the range of, the happy medium, in my opinion. So yeah, that's one of the features. This does have active carbon filtration in it. The fan does work very, very well. There is also a refill system on here. Unfortunately, they are limited to a specific type of resin bottle, which are these type of bottles. You'll usually see them with Elegoo and AnyCubic. So you do have to utilize these type of bottles, the brown top bottles, in order to use that, unless you design yourself an adapter system, which I think would be great. There probably are some adapters out there, because there are some printers on the market, like the AnyCubic M3 Max, that already utilize a refill system that has those same type of caps. And I know there's at least Soraya Tech adapters out there for this. So if you're someone that likes to use Soraya Tech, that'll be perfect for you. Excuse me. Sorry for the coughing. I've been getting over some bug after I got from Murph. So anyway, moving along. That does have a reclaim feature, which works very, very well. Obviously, it doesn't get every single piece of resin out of the vat, but it gets you a good amount to where you can actually handle it. That's one of the major downfalls that I have with the Mega 8K, is the fact that trying to deal with a vat that's full and has a failure in it and whatnot is really, really hard and frustrating at a lot of times. It's one of the features that I wish that printer had. And who knows, maybe sometime down the line somebody will develop something like that and we can add it on. But that's for another video, another day. Anyway, so let's get into some of the features here. I don't exactly have everything off of the top of my brain, so we're going to go off of our phone and see what we have for information for you guys. So this is a 16-inch LCD screen at 8K resolution. I know that's nothing spectacular nowadays, but in my opinion, 8K is good enough for a size this for this printer. It's not going to get you the greatest of quality, but it'll get you good enough to where you can match it up to like an older Saturn, an older AnyCubic printer, maybe from about a year ago. So that it's still relevant. And again, you may think like, oh, well, I wish it was 12K or 14K or whatever. Trust me, 8K is good enough for the detail that you get on a resin printer. In my opinion, I use all types of different resin printers. I have anything from ranging from a 2K to a 12K, and really there's very minimalistic differences in terms of stock settings that showcase the designs that really I don't think are going to be a major thing. So you really have to have like a microscope in order to see those differences in details. You're not going to see them really with the naked eye unless you really, really start tuning in things and getting things set up the way that they're intended to. Excuse me. Moving along. Build volume. We have a 353 by 198 by 400. So that's a very, very large resin printer. Again, kind of comparing this with the Mega 8K. The Mega has a 330 by 185 by 400. So it's slightly larger than the Mega 8K. And really, you may think, oh, well, 5 millimeter or 10 millimeter here doesn't really make a big difference, but it really does. Like, you got to think, like, that's 15 millimeters right there, essentially. So, that takes up just that little tiny bit can save you a lot of time, because me personally, I try and fill up my build plate as much as I possibly can, especially with these big resin printers, because, well, you paid for the full build volume, you might as well try and utilize it, right? That's my philosophy on that. I think that's a good idea, and that's essentially what we did with the Akuma here. He's got a lot of parts to him, and we essentially filled the entire build plate with him, and he turned out beautifully. I'm absolutely ecstatic with that design. I absolutely love it, and who knows, maybe at some point we'll get to painting him. But that's, again, for a future video, future time. We'll see how it goes. Now, if you guys are interested in backing this Kickstarter, again, I cannot tell you to kickstart this project, but if you are looking for a resin printer, I really, really think that this is a good idea, and it is a fantastic price right now. Now, currently, as the Kickstarter stands, there's only, I think there's about 8 or 9 days left, I forget. But right now, they do still have some early bird backers, because for some reason, some people think that this is a hoax. I personally don't think so. I've actually had quite a lot of communication with these people, and I kind of know the back end of where they're coming from. So I can just at least tell you that it is a legitimate company. I know the company makes other resin printers for other people. I'm not going to disclose that or anything, but let's just say they're good enough. But talking about it, early bird special. Now, they have it right now for $1,304. This is without shipping right now. And again, I think shipping at the max is $400. I think it's actually max $300 worldwide, that is. So let's just say $1,600, $1,700 all in for a printer like this. That is an amazing deal. That's half of what the Mega is going for right now. So I mean, that is an insanely good price for a printer of this size, speed, and all the technology that's packed into it. Because again, I just showed you a brief description of what the UI has, but it's got a ton of features that you can change. You can literally change anything on the fly. That does come with a year of Shitu Box VIP, which I guess they changed that from Pro. I don't know, maybe they just called it VIP, but essentially it's Shitu Box Pro, which is $169, and that is included with this sale as well. And it also has a 1-year warranty with it, which is fantastic. Not too many places that I see have a warranty like that. Now, obviously, I'm sure there's some stipulations. There's some user error that's involved in that. Just like anything else that you would with a warranty, there are some things that they will cover and they won't cover. What those are, I don't exactly know, but I'm sure there is. Now, again, there is another package that you can get that basically has everything. So you can get the printer, the wash station, and the cure station, which are able to utilize this full build volume. And if you like to have that system, that is only $1,700 $1,758. So that is a very, very good price in my opinion, if you are looking to get basically an all-in-one system. And again, if you are looking to basically get into resin printing and need fast printers and you want to start production on stuff, 2 of these printers right now is $23.59 on the early bird. So that is insanely good for the price. And that's a super early bird, actually. So my apologies. They only have the early bird available, which is still $2,500. So again, like I said, I think shipping was around $300-$400. I think that's per unit. So you add that on, okay? So you're a little bit over the price of a Mega at that point, but you got 2 of these things that are half or double the speed of what the Mega can produce. And in terms of what it can produce quality-wise, they're right on par. They're literally the same type of resolution. I think this is a 46 resolution, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a fantastic printer. Yes, 46 So that's a very, very good price range, I think, for this printer. One last thing I wanted to touch on before I let you guys go, and you're done with my rambling, is this printer does have an onboard camera system. Now, this is probably the biggest downfall of this entire setup, because it does utilize a third-party app, and that third-party app is not the greatest in any way, shape, or form. I don't think it ever will be, and the reason I say that is because I've actually had the camera that's in here about a year ago, and the app literally has not changed since then. So it's very not user friendly. It is not great. Now the camera is a fairly good camera. It does capture everything. I'd say it's probably like 720p. So again, it's not the greatest, but it'll still get you what you need for a time lapse. But in my opinion, that's a scrap off of my book. Out of anything on this printer, that's the one thing that I could really care less for on a resin printer most of the time. Unless I'm doing time lapses, which I haven't done in a while. I should really get back to it because I know that's some really, really cool stuff watching this stuff come up, especially with a printer this fast. I mean, it literally is no time for stuff to print off of it. But anyway, that's my biggest downfall on it. Also, I did want to add in that not only does this have the capabilities with the Wi-Fi dongle, it does have an Ethernet port as well, which does work pretty well. Probably a little bit better system to utilize the Ethernet than the Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi can get a lot of interference in it, and that's why they have it separated. So I'm not a big fan of using wireless transfer for literally anything. But I do use it from time to time because I'm just in a rush and I don't feel like taking the SD card out or the USB drive, sliding it here, there, or whatever. But I did use the USB drive that was included in here. It is a very nice USB drive and it works very, very well. So we don't really have to replace it. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this printer. If you guys got any questions, comments, you guys can leave them down below. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like, share it out to people. And yeah, like I said, if you guys got any other information that you want to know about this, I can gladly help you. I'm always around. You can hit me up on any of the social medias under the AkumaMods name. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review and me talking your ear off. And that's pretty much it for the time being. Till next time, guys, happy printing.